Hello, today's video is a guide on doing herb runs. This is mainly for absolute beginners, but there will be some tips that anyone could find useful. So even if you have been doing herb runs for a long time, I recommend sticking around. Farming herbs is great for both main accounts and ironman. On mains, you can get a bit of farming XP while making some money passively, and even get a chance at the farming pet. And for ironman, herb runs are extremely important as they're your main source of herb lore XP. They're very simple to do, so even if you're an absolute beginner to farming, it should be easy to get into. If you are totally new to farming, I recommend checking out my farming guide. There I talk more in depth about farming as a whole, but I'll include some beginner tips here too. So to start farming herbs, you need at least level 9 farming and just a few tools. All you need is a rake to rake the weeds from your patches, a seed dibber to plant the seeds, a spade to dig up your herbs, and once you've completed the quest Fairy Tale Part 1, you'll want to have magic secateurs equipped when you harvest your herbs, because this gives you extra herbs. You'll also want some compost and plant cure. All of these things, except for the magic secateurs, you can buy from any farming shop around the game, and most of them you can buy from the gardeners who roam around farming patches if you talk to them. The closest farming shop to a bank is Catherby, or the Farming Guild, but that requires 45 farming. For better compost, you can use certain crops in the compost bin to make super compost. The fastest way to do this is buy pineapples in Catherby and use them in the compost bin. You can then make ultra compost with that and volcanic ash. You can then store all of this stuff with the tool leprechaun at every farming patch. Personally, I prefer this over storing farming stuff in my bank, not only to save bank space, but it's also nice if I forget something because the tool leprechaun is just right there. For your gear, you want to eventually have the farming outfit, but starting out you'll want graceful or weight reducing gear, or just not wear anything if you don't have those options. You don't want to have a lot of gear on you that weighs a lot and makes your run energy drain faster. Then all you need is some teleports. There are 10 herb patches in the game, but starting out you'll only have access to a few of them. The first one is north of Ardone, and the quickest way to get there is the Artie Cape from the Medium Diary. Otherwise, there are some teleports in the area, but it's a bit of a run. The second is the Catherby patch. This is pretty easy to get to with the Camelot teleport and is close to a bank. Once you have access to lunar spells, you can use the Catherby teleport on the lunar spellbook instead. There is a new herb patch in Varlamore, accessible after the quest Children of the Sun. The fastest way to get here is using a Quetzal whistle after doing 10 Hunter's Rumors. Otherwise, you can use the Varlamore teleport with 54 magic, or the Quetzal outside Varrock, or charter ship. For Falador, you ideally want the Lumbridge Medium Diary for a really fast teleport. Harmony Island requires the Mauritania Elite Diary, but once you have that done, there is a quick teleport on the Arceus spellbook. On Korend, you have access to the Hosidius farming patches, and with the easy Korend Diary, these become disease-free, so they'll never die. The closest teleport here is Xeric's Glade on the Xeric's Talisman. You can also use the Hosidius House portal with 25 construction, the Hosidius teleport on Corette's Memoir, or the Tithe Farm teleport with 34 farming. In Mauritania, there is a farming patch near Port Phasmatis. Ideally, you want access to fairy rings to use the code ALQ for this, or you can use an ectophile teleport after the quest Ghost Ahoy. In Troll Stronghold and Weiss, there are just single herb patches with no allotments. For the Troll Stronghold patch, you need completion of the quest My Arm's Big Adventure, and then can use the Trollheim teleport or Stony Basalt. And on Weiss, you need completion of the quest Making Friends with My Arm, and want Icy Basalt as your teleport. Last is the Farming Guild in Korend, which requires 65 farming for the herb patch. The closest teleports are a skills necklace to the Farming Guild and the fairy ring code CIR. Ideally, you want the good teleports before you start farming at each of these patches. You can always just start with a few until you have some more levels and diaries unlocked. To start farming herbs, all you need is a herb seed for each patch, which you can get from monster drops or pickpocketing master farmers. First, rake the patch to clear the weeds. I don't have any because I unlocked auto weed from Tithe Farm. Use your seed on the herb patch to plant it and use your compost. Regular compost reduces the chance of your patch becoming diseased and increases your yield, so it's good to use. Super compost does the same but better, and ultra compost is the best you can get. I have a bottomless bucket from Hespori which stores a ton of compost in it, so I can just use this at each patch. Once your herb is planted, it goes through 4 stages of growth. In each stage, it has a chance to become diseased, but I wouldn't worry too much about curing them unless you happen to be nearby, because you'll get so many seeds from Slayer and Thieving that losing a few at the start isn't a big deal. If you do see it diseased, you can grab your plant cure and use it on the herb patch. This will make it start growing like normal again. If your plant becomes diseased and you don't cure it in time, it'll die and you won't harvest anything when you dig it up. But once it's fully grown, it just stays like that until you harvest it, so you don't have to worry about it getting diseased. That only happens while it's growing. It takes 4 stages of 20 minutes or 80 minutes in total to fully grow. Then you can come back and harvest it and use them on the tool leprechaun to note them and save inventory space for the next patch. And of course, replant the seed and wait another 80 minutes. Pretty simple, that's really all there is to farming herbs. But there are a lot of tips I can give you, so here they are. When you're harvesting, you can click your herb patch, wait a split second, and then spam click to harvest faster. Personally, I like to clean all my herbs before noting them on the tool leprechaun for some extra herblore XP, and it's nice in case I accidentally clean them anyway. This saves me some time later when I'm using them to make potions. Though if you play an Ultimate Ironman, you want to keep them grimy because you only get grimy herbs as Slayer and boss drops, so having cleaned herbs would just take up more inventory space. If you have fairy rings unlocked, it'd be good to right click and favorite the fairy rings you use frequently for farming. You can also do the Barbarian Farming mini quest to be able to plant seeds without a seed dipper. This is nice in case you forget it and also saves an inventory spot. If you use RuneLight, here are a couple of really helpful plugins. First is the time tracking plugin, which you can use to track when your herb patches are done growing and even get notifications for them. I also just like using it as a list of all the farming patches so I can be sure I haven't missed one. You can also use the inventory setups plugin to make a setup for farming, so it's faster to get all your gear and tools. To add a setup, just organize your gear and inventory how you want, and click the green plus button at the top and type in a name. As you upgrade your gear, you can right click to update slots or click the refresh button to update the entire thing. Last plugin I recommend is Menu Entry Swapper. This allows you to customize your left click options on the items you use. You can do this for teleport items, and for UIMs you can select clean to change all herbs to have use as the left click instead. You can also hold shift and right click something in your inventory to swap the left click. If you're an Ironman, when you do your herb runs, you should also be doing berry bushes. The seeds are pretty easy to come by for extra farming XP, and you don't have to worry about replanting them each time. White berries and poison ivy berries in particular are used in herblore, so they're really good to collect each time you do a farm run. I also recommend keeping up with your kingdom on your farm run. You can bring a rake to rake the patch near the Etcetera bush patch each day to keep your popularity at 100%. Or you can bring an axe and chop a couple teak logs instead, although this is a slightly further run. But but if your popularity has dropped a lot, it's easier to chop trees than to hop worlds raking the patch. You can also do belladonna and seaweed for pet chance. Belladonna also is used in herblore, and seaweed you can save for crafting. Also, a good Ironman tip is to do limpworts in the flower patch. If you have a lot of seeds, you can plant them at every patch with regular compost since it's super easy to get. But if you want to conserve your seeds because you only have a few, it's better to just plant them at the Osidious patch with the Easy Corin Diary since they won't die. Compost isn't useful here because it doesn't increase the yield. I also like to plant snapegrass here, and I do compost this to get more snapegrass, or sometimes watermelons because they're useful for fruit tree farming. Once you have 76 farming, you can use the anima seeds you get from killing Hespori. Chronos is only useful if you're trying to get a crop to grow as soon as possible for some reason, so it's best with stuff that takes a really long time to grow, but it's random what it affects, so it's hard to keep track of when your patches skip a growth cycle. Iazor and Addis are both good, just use whatever is available. If you have lower farming or less seeds, Iazor may be better because it decreases the chance of disease, while Addis increases the yield of all your crops. And last tip is to use the Wiki Herb Farming Calculator. Here you can just type in your username or manually type in your level, and then do the number of herb patches you do and what you have access to. There are a bunch of other options you can select, and then you can submit and see the average amount of expected herbs from your farm runs based on each type of herb. For main accounts looking to make money, this also shows how much you profit. You can also use this to determine whether Addis or Iazor would be better to use, although for me it looks to be pretty much the same. Well, that's all for this video, and that's all the tips I have for herb runs. Whether you're a beginner or have been farming for a while, I hope this video helped you. Thanks for watching and have a great day. Goodbye.